I'm going to show a brief, couple-minute video from Kristen, my TV show host. Then I'll get started. We'll go over some housekeeping things, and then we'll get going with the presentation. We'll get you guys out of here within an hour or so, and let you ask questions. And I'll stay here as long as you have questions and we'll answer. And then we'll go from there. So hopefully we'll have a good night. We'll educate, empower you, so you can make better decisions with your hard-earned money. And hopefully, that's why you're here. We like working with libraries because it really coincides with what our motto is at DPS Advisors. So I'm going to play a quick video, then we'll get going.
Hello everyone, I'm Kristen Oakley, co-host of the Papa Report TV show, and on behalf of the entire DPS Advisors team, I'd like to welcome you to this event. We're so glad that you're here. We recognize that there's a lot of other places you could be right now and a lot of other things that you could be doing, but you chose to come here and invest in your financial future, and we really admire you for that. This event is just one of many ways that the DPS Advisors team lives out its motto of educating and empowering people to make better decisions with their hard-earned money. You choosing to be here today is part of that mission, and it's our sincere hope that you will leave here feeling educated and empowered to make better decisions with your hard-earned money. I have the pleasure of introducing you to John Papa. Now, you can read all about his professional bio on his website or on the materials that are going to be given to you here at this event. So, what I want to do is share with you some things about John that you won't find anywhere else. I first met John in early 2023 when I was asked to become his new television show host. In an industry that can often be filled with a lot of arrogance and large egos, I was immediately struck by John's humility and his sincere desire to connect with and positively impact the lives of our television show viewers. But perhaps what impressed me even more was John's desire to acknowledge and appreciate every single person behind the scenes who is a part of his show. Every time we work together, John takes the time to write a handwritten note and includes a generous monetary gift to every single person behind the scenes, from the director to the cameraman to the makeup artist and to me. Here's my latest one. It says, "Kristen, thank you for everything that you do for me to make my show great. I really appreciate all you do for me. John." He recognizes that it takes an entire team of people to be able to do what he does, and he always goes the extra mile to show his gratitude. After John and I had been working together for about a year, we both attended an industry dinner that was filled with financial advisors from across the country. As we sat next to each other enjoying our meal in a very noisy room, I started asking John some hypothetical questions about my own financial situation. Now, what John didn't know, and I didn't tell him, is that my husband and I were currently looking for a new financial advisor to manage our own money. He answered all my questions and didn't hesitate to offer the opportunity for me to receive a complimentary written financial plan, just like he provides to every single person who wants to make an appointment with him. When I got back to my hotel room that night, I called my husband and I said, "I know we found our guy." We were blown away by the level of detail that John was able to provide for us, especially because I'd already been working in this industry as a financial educator for over a decade. Shortly after that, we became clients of DPS Advisors, and it is by far one of the best decisions that we have ever made. So much so that we've now gone on to refer 5 other friends and family members who've now entrusted John and the team to take care of their financial futures as well. In addition to his knowledge and expertise, one of the things we really appreciate about John is his responsiveness. A few months after we had become clients, I was making coffee in my company's break room, and word was getting around the office that the stock market was going crazy. As I listened to all the chatter and heard all the people freaking out around me, I glanced down at my phone and boom, there was an email from John telling me exactly what was going on, what we needed to know about it, and most of all, providing the reassurance that because of the plan he had built for us, we were going to be fine. Anytime we have a question, concern, or decision that involves a dollar sign, we know we can count on John and the team of DPS advisors to be there for us in a timely manner. I could go on and on about John, but I think the best thing I can do for you is allow you to experience John and a team of DPS advisors for yourself.
Chris? Not the most technical guy in the room, so that's why we have Chris here to work with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for coming. In case you don't know, my name is John Papa. I'm the president of DPS Advisors. And here's a little bit of background about myself. I started this practice with my dad 40 years ago. I know I look 25, but I'm actually going to be 62 in July, so I can't believe what happened at the time. So we started this practice a long, long time ago with the motto of educating and empowering people so you can make better decisions with your hard-earned money. That's why we use libraries, Ridgewood. We use our home office is in Roseland, we have an office in Paramus. So we use the Roseland office, Milburn, Livingston, Paramus, Ridgewood. We do a lot of events at Season 52, lunch events. So we try to educate and empower people. And that's kind of our motto today. Hopefully you're here to learn some stuff about retirement, okay? For 40 years, I've been working with people who are in this age category, trying to help them make great decisions with their money, okay? And before we start, there's some housekeeping things that I keep forgetting to talk about. Number one, every one of you got one of these sheets that has the Retirement Masterclass on it. I know it's a little bit dark in here, but it allows us to see the screen better. So if you can, we're going to be taking these sheets. I need to get one of these sheets from everybody in the room. If you're a couple, you only have to fill out one, okay? And if you're interested, we're going to talk to you about Social Security. We're going to talk to you about taxes on qualified plans, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs. We're going to talk about market volatility. How do you invest when you get older with the markets being volatile like they are today? If you're interested, we're going to offer everybody a chance to come into our office in Paramus and talk about, why you came here to listen to what we had to say, and hopefully you'll take us up on that offer at the end. And if you do want to take us up, there's information on the back that just give us an idea of when you come in what we're going to be talking about. So if you could fill that out, that would be great. So again, you met Luke and Ted. Ted's my brother-in-law. I'm married to his sister. Luke's my son, been in the business with me now going into his 4th year. And my daughter, you may have talked to when confirmation calls were happening, Alyssa, she started working with us about a year ago. So we're truly a family-run practice, 3rd generation in our firm. My dad's no longer here. He didn't know his grandkids were going to work with us. But it's a 3rd generation. We're really proud and excited about that. We're a small company. We treat people like family because that's how we work. Everybody in my office is related to me. So with that, I'm going to start our presentation, and we have a nice little room here. You can ask some questions. If we get short on time, I will stop, and then we'll be here afterwards and answer any questions that you have. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about, you can't read this, and that's fine. It's a compliance slide. And what it says up there, it has to be up there for like 30 seconds. What it says is, we're not talking to anybody in this room specifically tonight. We're going to talk in general. And I don't want you to go home tonight and say, hey, I heard John talk about this strategy, and we're going to go implement this thing. No, do not do that. Do not go home and implement anything that we talk to you about tonight. After we meet with you in person, if that's what you choose to do, and we go over specific stuff tailored to your situation, then it'll be time to make decisions on implementing strategies. So that's what that means. So promise me you're not going to go home tonight and do anything. to your portfolio because of what you heard here, okay? So, and we're being recorded, so now I know I have it recorded, so you can't go home and say, and do something, all right? So that's what that says, okay? Next, why did you accept the invitation? One other thing too, I also put housekeeping. If you had your cell phone on, like Chris's cell phone went on before in the video, Chris, you can shut your cell phone off or put it on silent. It gets a little disruptive. So if you have a cell phone, just put it on silent. And that would just make it a little easier to talk. So why did you accept the invitation? Okay, we've seen enough videos not to show that. You know, I'm in this business 40 years. It's not my first rodeo. You're not the first person that we're going to talk to at a seminar. This isn't your first event. But it's probably a little different here because I'm not offering you a free steak from Ruth's Chris. I'm not offering you a free meal. I really want to talk to you about education, and there's a reason why you came to the Ridgewood Library on a Tuesday night at 6:30, okay? So maybe there's something going on, and we have an extensive background in this field, okay? Anybody heard of Fox Business? And then you guys can talk, you can respond. Okay, every Sunday at 2 o'clock, there's a show called The Wealth Council. And they bring advisors from across the country to talk about the topics that we'll talk about tonight. I am one of the advisors that is on that Wealth Council. They allow us to wear a Wealth Council pin. We just recorded shows. We go every 2 or 3 months out to the studios and record a bunch of shows. So you can, on Sunday afternoons, click on one of these days and you'll see me as one of the advisors. In fact, we got a show schedule, and I think I'm going to be on, Chris, what was that, April 26th? Is the first episode of the Wealth Council for this season that I'll be on. You can click on it at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, and I'll be on one of the segments of that show. I've also been on a show, and who's heard of CNBC? Not to be political, but we're on both sides of the aisle. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I was on a show on CNBC called Worldwide Exchange. It was broadcast in 90 countries about retirement planning, how to create income in retirement in a low interest rate environment. So I was on that show for a while. I was on MSNBC. Earlier tonight, you saw the show called The Papa Report. We're broadcast every Sunday night at 6:30 on WPIX, CW11. It's on every Saturday morning on New Jersey 12 Network. I've been on Benzinga. I've written articles for Benzinga and Market Watch. So I have a pretty good experience in this field. And like I said, it's not my first rodeo. I've been doing this a really long time. Through our firm, we manage assets for clients. We build retirement plans. We analyze what you have. We make recommendations when we see inefficiencies. Okay? We're also licensed fiduciaries. Anybody heard? A lot of people throw that term around. Has anybody heard of fiduciary before? You know what that word fiduciary means? Does anybody know what that means? We're held to a higher standard than a regular broker. Okay, so you might be working with one of those big box farm brokers. They're held to the suitability standard. Fiduciaries are held to a higher standard. We have your needs and over our own at all time. And I use Home Depot as an analogy for a fiduciary. So let's say you wanted to hang one of these beautiful pictures in the back of this library here in your house, and you needed a hammer. Okay, your big box farm broker person sells you a 20-pound hammer. And that's a suitable recommendation. You asked for a hammer, and they sold you a hammer. They can't get in trouble for that. But as a fiduciary, if I sold you a 20-pound hammer, and you got hurt swinging that hammer, and you notified the SEC, I'm probably getting fined for that, because I have to find the right hammer that works for you. I have to ask you about any health conditions I need to know about, any orthopedic issues, cancer, heart conditions, anything that would impair you from working with a 20-pound hammer. I have to go find the right hammer that you can actually swing. Okay? So we go down to aisle 13 and we find the hammer that works for you. That's the fiduciary standard of care. So if you get one thing out of tonight, is you should be working with a fiduciary if you have a financial advisor. Okay? And it's really easy to find out if your advisor is a fiduciary. You go home tomorrow, because tonight it'll be too late to call. Tomorrow you call and say, hey, I was talking to this guy. Well, maybe you might not want to tell me right on the presentation, but I heard from somebody asking about a fiduciary. Are you a fiduciary? If they say yes, say that's great. Which kind are you? Because there's only two kinds. A registered investment advisor, RIA, or a certified financial planner, CFP. Those are the only two advisor designations that are allowed to tell people they are fiduciaries licensed by the SEC and registered by the SEC. We are all fiduciaries. My firm, DPS Advisors, is a SEC registered fiduciary.
Which fiduciary?
I'm a registered investment advisor. Okay? So we have the right to say that, and I'm proud of that. It's a difficult, title to get, and it means that you've been acting in fiduciary care for clients. So that's who we are. Family-run practice with offices in Roseland and in Paramus. These are some information on our show. The Papa Reports on New Jersey 12 Network every Saturday morning on New Jersey 12 at 8:30. Broadcast every other Sunday on CW 11 at 6:30. I also do a radio show. I'm not too creative with words. It's called the Papa Report as well, right? That show is on WOR 710 every Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. You click on the radio. Anybody listen to the radio? I'm shocked how many people listen to the radio. We get more calls for content from clients from the radio than we do any other marketing. These events, TV shows, radio show. The radio show brings in more clients to DPS Advisors than any other media. And I'm shocked by that. So every Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, click on WOR, you'll hear me and Morgan having an hour conversation talking about stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. So a radio show, TV show, I wrote a book called Avoiding the Retirement Traps. I'm working on a new book called The Intelligent Investor. So I have a really good knowledge of what you guys are dealing with and what you're going through. Okay? We're going to talk a couple things tonight. The first one's going to be Social Security. Ted is going to come up and talk a little bit about Social Security, ask some questions if you have any, bring you some information about it, and then we'll move on and go through the rest of our program. Does anyone have any questions before we actually start? Any questions about who we are or what we are or anything like that? No? Okay.
All right, thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. As John said, I'm going to talk to you about Social Security tonight. I have been with DPS Advisors for 2 years now. I've been in the financial services industry for about 35 years. It's scary to say that. I am the new guy at the firm, so as the new guy, I'm the guy who gets to talk to you about Social Security every time. And Social Security is a very important topic. I like talking about it. My problem is that there are over 2,700 rules that govern Social Security. And the Social Security Administration conducted a study in 2018 where they actually determined there are over 9,000 different ways for a married couple to file for Social Security. So John asks me to talk about 2,700 rules and 9,000 ways to file in 5 or 10 minutes. So wish me luck. With all of that said, there's two questions. Those big numbers, there's two questions that people have when they come into our offices and they want to talk about Social Security. The first question is, will Social Security be there for me when I need it? And the answer to that question is yes, but. And the second question is, when is the best time for me to file or claim Social Security? And the answer to that question is, it depends. So you're going to get a lot of concrete evidence, a lot of concrete answers there. You're going to get yes, but, and an it depends. The first question, we're going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. We're going to go back 91 years. In 1935, FDR enacted Social Security. And at that time, they chose the full retirement age to be 65. They thought 60 was a little too young, 70 was too old, 65 was chosen as the full retirement age. Is there anyone here who can take a guess what the average life expectancy was for a person who was born in 1935? Take a guess?
Less than 64.
59 and a half. So just do that quick math. Full retirement age was 65. Average life expectancy was 59 and a half. Right? They weren't expecting people to live very long in retirement. and to take a lot of money out of Social Security. Here we are, 91 years later. All they've done is they've increased the full retirement age from 65 to either 66 or 67, depending on when you were born. But can anyone tell me now what the average life expectancy is for someone who was born in 2026?
79.
So for women, it's 79. For men, it's about 74. So it's about 77 and a half. Everyone knows that women tend to live longer than men. We're not going to debate the reasons why in this class tonight. But we all know women live longer than men. So if you think about that, right? They've just increased the full retirement age a year or two, but people are living so much longer. Last year in 2025, over 77 million people collected Social Security. So between the baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, you now have more people who are going to be in retirement than who are actually working. So more people are pulling money out of the fund. If you've ever seen on your pay stub, right, you're going to see either Social Security tax or FICA. Everybody always wonders, who's the FICA guy that I'm paying 6.25% of my earnings to? FICA is the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. That's the money that goes into the Social Security Trust Fund. All right? So for everybody in this room who's going to be collecting Social Security at some point, you can thank young Luke back there, who's the guy who's going to be contributing for all of us. All right? So all of that money that has been paid into the system, we now have more people taking money out of the system. If Congress doesn't do anything, doesn't change anything, they're estimating that in the year 2032, 2033, the trust fund is going to be completely, you've heard the term, it's going bankrupt, right? So what it means is there's going to be no funds left over that we're contributing, but people like Luke who are younger are still going to be working and they're still going to be contributing. So what that means for people who are in this room is you need to consider that either whatever you're collecting currently or whatever you're anticipating collecting, they're estimating that what you are getting, if Congress doesn't take any action by that time, you can expect that you're going to be getting about 80% of what you should have gotten from Social Security, right? John's going to talk more about inflation, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but by 2033, you know, everything's going to be more expensive than it is today. And what happens if your Social Security is cut to 80% of what you were expecting, right? So I'm not here to scare you, but if you have a financial advisor that you're talking to, it's something that you perhaps need to prepare for, okay? The second question, when is the best time for me to claim or file Social Security? The answer again is it depends. While we all kind of look very similar in this room as far as age, that characteristic, the same kind of cohort, I assure you everyone's situation is very unique, right? You may have friends or relatives who tell you, you know, I collected when I was 62. I think you should get your money as soon as possible. While they may have your best interests at heart, they may not know anything about your current financial situation, right? The first question is, are you still working? Are you still working under your full retirement age? Because if you're making over $25,000 and you're not at your full retirement age yet, they're going to hold back for every $2 over that $25,000. They're going to hold back $1. You'll get that when you turn your full retirement age. You'll get it back, but it's still going to reduce what you were anticipating that you were going to get. It's a strange thing for financial advisors to tell you, but you perhaps should talk to your physician, right? Who knows better about your health than your physician? If people are living longer nowadays, which we all know they are, the fact that you're actually in this room right now, the good news is, women in the room, you can expect to live until your late 80s, men to your early 80s, right? You need to plan for that because we want to make sure in retirement that your standard of living is no less than it was when you were working. All right, so are we're the sandwich generation. We're taking care of parents financially, while at the same time we're taking care of perhaps adult children financially. Right, so everyone's situation is unique. Are you married? Are you divorced? Are you healthy? My grandfather lived till he was 96. My parents are both alive at 86. So I need to prepare and plan for the fact that I perhaps am going to have a long life. Your individual situation is very unique. Just want to make sure everyone knows that the minimum age that you can file is 62 years old. If you claim Social Security at 62, you're going to get about 75% of what you would have gotten had you waited until your full retirement age, which again is either 66 or 67. However, if you wait to the age of 70, you're going to get 132% had you waited to 70 instead of your full retirement age. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but between your full retirement age of either 66 or 67 and 70, the government gives you what's called delayed retirement credits. So you get 8% a year at a time when perhaps your portfolio is going to be conservative. Government's guaranteeing you 8% if you can wait. All right, so you'll see the Social Security wage tax, right, is $168,000 up there, $176,000 for 2025. For 2026, we need to update the slide. It's about $184,000. What that means is if you make $200,000 a year, $500,000 or $1 million a year, for Social Security purposes, you're only going to be taxed up to that number of $176,000. Now it's $184,000. Question?
It's going back, bro. Why would you cap it at a certain salary?
Can you say that again?
If it's going backward, why would you cap it at a certain salary?
Why do they cap it? Because by increasing the salary, it's a great question. They are continuing to increase it, so they're getting more revenue.
There should be any cap.
That may happen.
Backward.
That's one of the things that the government can do. Or what they can do is, like the full retirement age of 66 or 67, for people like Luke, they could say, you know what, your full retirement age is going to be 70. So they can increase, they can raise that as well. Great question. We'll see. But that's the point that we're telling you is you perhaps have to prepare for the inevitability that maybe they won't. And then if you're collecting already, your Social Security may be cut. If you're not collecting but expecting a number, it may be cut as well. Okay? Maximum benefit for this year at 70 is going to be about $5,200. So those are, the basics. That's when you can claim 62, 66, 67. With all of the things that I just talked about why your situation is very unique compared to anybody sitting next to you, what we want to do is give you a mathematical example just so you can get a look at what's the difference is if you actually wait at different times. So in these three scenarios, you've got a husband and a wife, Ron and Nancy. Ron is 60, Nancy is 58 in each scenario. Ron's life expectancy, again, as a 60-year-old man is 85, Nancy's is about 90. If they live to 85 and 90 in all three scenarios, they both choose to take their monthly benefit at 62. Their cumulative value of the benefit would be $1.6. All right. However, same scenario, 60 and 58, life expectancy 85 and 90. Instead of taking it at 62, they take it at their full retirement age of 67. Their cumulative benefit would have been $1.9 million, about $280,000 more. Even though it's over a shorter period of time, the monthly benefit is dramatically increased. If they wait until they're 70, you're going to see that the cumulative benefit would be $2.1 million. That's about $400,000 difference in a shorter period of time. The monthly benefit went up to about $3,800 for Ron, $2,800 for Nancy. So purely from a mathematical perspective, if you can wait, this is just showing you for an average couple of how it could dramatically impact your earnings from Social Security if you wait to the older age, okay? Are there any questions on that? I think I'm over my 5 or 10 minute limit. Can answer a question or two, but as John said, we are going to be here afterwards to answer any questions you might have.
For years and years, they always said the last guaranteed year is if you were born in 1959. Have they changed that at all?
The last guaranteed years for Social Security,
Yeah.
well, again, the trust fund is going to be empty before. Depends how they say guaranteed year, because if, people, we still have a generation of people who are going to continue to work, who are going to continue to contribute.
But they don't work like we work.
Well, I mean,
I've been doing what I've been doing for 49 years. I'm
Yeah.
gonna find a kid now that's gonna do that.
right. So, and that's a consideration, right? This is one of the topics that we're talking about. It's not everything that's important. So Social Security was only meant to be about 40% of your income. What's happening now is 40% of single women who are either divorced or widowed or single are relying 100% on Social Security. So to your point, if something happens to the Social Security trust fund, right, or it's cut to 80%, you need to make sure that you've got a plan in place to make up for what potentially you could be missing there. Question?
Two first questions.
Yes.
35 years of your most job.
So you get, if you qualify for Social Security, if you work 10 full years, you get what's called 40 credits, right? And then they base it on the maximum income for 35 years that you've been working.
So you have to work for 10 years to get Social Security minimum?
40 quarters, which is generally 10 full years, that's right. And then if you work 35 years, whatever those 35 years, it's based on the maximum income over those 35 years. All right, I think I'm at my time limit, but like we said, we're going to be here afterwards to answer any questions that you may have as well. Thank you.
Good job, Ted. So the young kids that I worry about, the work-life balance, right? That's what they focus their life on.
Is that what it is?
The work-life balance.
I just sort of, my daughter mentioned that to me one day.
She's like, the work-life balance. I'm like, well, what is that? The work-life balance. You gotta go to work so you can live. And that's how we were raised, right? So that's why the topic I'm gonna get into next is about taxes on qualified plans. Is really important because you guys worked your whole life and saved every dollar you had. If you didn't have it in cash, you didn't buy it. You didn't put it on a credit card like the young kids today. You guys we're the save generation. Right? So this next topic is taxes on qualified plans, right? Who in the room, well, first let me ask, are there any accountants in the room? Any accountants that do individual taxes for people?
They wouldn't be here today.
I'm sorry?
They wouldn't be here.
Yeah, they're working.
No, actually, we get one or two every once in a while, and I got to apologize in advance because I'm going to say some things. I don't really mean it to them personally, but, accountants, we'll talk a little bit about that.
I think he means because they have a week to file
Oh,
taxes.
yeah, all right, there you go. I totally missed that.
That's what I meant.
I didn't totally miss that. You're right about that, right? And that's one of the reasons why accountants don't normally agree with a lot of stuff that we talk about, because I would rather maybe pay a little bit of tax now so I can get tax-free stuff later, but they don't think like that. So, income tax and you, okay? So I told you, when I started this business 40 years ago, my dad and I, we went out to small businesses, and we were part of the problem. I'm up here to tell you, I was part of the problem, okay? Because we went to small businesses, 25, 30 employees or less, and we put in the 401k plans. And I sat up in front of this room, if you were a company, I told you that the best thing you could do for your retirement is to put money into a 401k, 403b, 457, whatever tax-deferred account you had available to yourself. I was in the room telling you to max that thing out, put as much money in it as you can, because you're gonna have a big pot of money later on, and you'll be able to retire comfortably. You guys remember being in those rooms and listening to those stories? Okay. What if I told you in that meeting, you guys could put all this money in that qualified plan, 401k, 403b, 457, or whatever you want to call it, and I said to you, but by the time you retire at 70 years old, 65, 70, whatever, tax rates are going to be 70% of that. You're going to lose 70% of that money to the IRS in taxes. Who signs up for that plan? Nobody. We never told anybody, because we don't know what the tax rates are going to be. And we had those conversations 30 years ago, you're working 39, 49 years, you're working all these years, I'm in this 40 years, right? We've been saving all of our lives in tax-deferred accounts. This slide is about a year old, but I'll update this slide as well. Our country, about 3 weeks ago, crossed over the $39 trillion in debt. Number. $39 trillion in debt. If you go to a website called usdebtclock.org, you don't look at it too long because you'll get a headache. The numbers are spinning so fast. Our country's debt is rapidly increasing, right? And bless you. And our country doesn't make any products for profit to reduce our debt. How do they collect revenue? Somebody want to answer? Did you say taxes? Yeah, our country collects taxes for revenue. So the only way to pay down the debt is going to be through taxes, right? Who remembers Ronald Reagan? He was the president, right? What was he before he became president? That. And in 1939, 1940, I'm not 100% sure of the date, the year, he made a film, a Western film, and he was paid $1 million salary in 1939 and 40. $1 million back then. You know what the highest federal tax rate was in 1939 and 1940? And if he was around today, I would ask him this question once I give you the answer. What do you think?
My question is, that $1 million, how much is it now?
Well, that's inflation. We'll talk about that in a second. But the tax rate on $1 million salary in 1939 or 40 was 90%. Ronald Reagan paid $900,000 to the federal government. And I honestly think if he's here today and I had a chance to interview him, I would ask him, was that the reason why he got into politics? Because politicians control the purse string. Congress can change the tax code at any time. They can change the tax rates at any time. Our country is $39 trillion in debt. Ted just talked to you about there's more retired people collecting on Social Security than there's going to be working in the next few years. The young kids today, they don't save money. So where do you think tax rates are going now in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years? Where do you think tax rates are going? Up. Does anybody think tax rates are going down in the next 30 years? We had one person at the Seasons 52 in Paramus tell me he thinks tax rates are going down. I said, well, with all due respect, you're entitled to your opinion. I'll talk to you at a later date. And we can have a conversation. That gentleman is a client of ours now. And he actually was in our office today. I had a meeting with him this morning. But he honestly thinks tax rates are going down in the next 25, 30 years. I don't know how that is. But if tax rates are going up in the next 25, 30 years, or 10, 15 years, these 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans are called tax-deferred accounts, right? You guys, right? You heard that term? They're tax-deferred. You pay a tax later. The accountants are telling you, pay the tax later. You know, later. Keep the firm. But if you have a tax-deferred account, when do you want to take money out of those tax-deferred accounts? When tax rates are low, or when tax rates are high? Can somebody? Low, right? You don't want to tax defer until tax rates are high. So if we're all in agreement that tax rates are going up, and we're in the lowest tax rate environment we're going to be in for the rest of our lives, why aren't we taking money out of these accounts now? And no one's doing it. Nobody's talking to you about.
I was told, yeah, do that, right? Take the money out like in increments. But then they said you might run out of the money down. Like how many years?
Well, I'm not telling you to take it out and go to that city. I'm telling you. We're not telling you to spend your. I didn't say spend your tax deferred accounts now. I said take the money out now. I didn't say spend it.
Would you?
Hold on. Right. But those are great questions. We're going to get to that. So if the objective is to take the money out now, and no one's doing it, that means you're not doing tax plans. Who meets with their accountant? Now, I know I've asked accounts a little bit. Who meets with their accountant, not now, when it's April 15th? Like, here's the system. You gather all your stuff in January. We used to go meet our accountant. Now we email them all the stuff. Then you used to meet the accountant again when it was tax time to get your return back so you could put it in the mail and file it. Now you see the accountant one time, if that, they e-file, and you don't see the accountant ever again until next January, February. Who does that with their accountants? Everybody. Almost everybody. Who meets with their accountant in August and September to figure out how next year's taxes are going to be low? One person. Who does tax planning on their 401k, 403b, 457? Are you talking to your accountant about how to reduce the taxes on your retirement plan?
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months? Awesome. You didn't raise your hand before when I said who's doing a tax plan. Okay? Awesome. One person. That happens all the time. We get one person. Okay? Nobody's doing tax planning here. We're going to educate you today and talk to you about why tax planning is a must for every person in this room. Okay? So, let's talk a little bit about it right now. I've been doing this, I know I've said it a bunch of times, but I've been doing this a really long time. And I know a lot about the people in this room based on their age. We don't like change. I could tell you something that's the best thing ever, but if it involves you changing what you're doing, most of you aren't going to do it because you don't like to change. Just stay the status quo and just keep doing it, no matter how good it could be for you. So I understand that. So I'm going to educate you today on tax planning, and hopefully some of you are going to take advantage of it, and we're going to make your situation better. But there's a couple things you can do. Who remembers the show, Let's Make a Deal? We all remember that, right? Who has no idea? I think the younger people don't even know what that is. I actually was with somebody yesterday, a younger kid, who didn't even know who Lynn Swan was. We saw Lynn Swan. I'm like, hey, that's Lynn Swan. The guy's like, who's that? Who's that? I go, you know Terry Bradshaw? He's like, yeah, he's the receiver who got all the touchdowns. I had no idea who Lynn Swan was. But let's
wasn't
make
me, by the way.
It wasn't him. Let's make a deal. We're going to play a game called Let's Make a Deal. All right? And we're going to talk to you, except for this gentleman here, who's doing tax planning, the people who aren't doing tax planning. If you don't do tax planning, here's what's going to happen. The IRS has a plan for you, okay? So let's give you a mathematical example. We like to do math, make it sound, so we can answer the question. Let's say you're 65 years old and you have $500,000 sitting in, whether it's a 401k, IRA, 403b, 457, one of those tax-deferred accounts. Okay, we're the save generation. Is that too far-fetched? I'm not using $5 million IRA, $500,000. If you've saved money, got a company match for 30 years, is that fair? That's not a crazy number, right? Okay, and let's not even change the tax code at all. We're going to use today's tax rates, even though we all are in agreement, 5-10 years from now, tax rates are going to be higher. But we'll use today's tax code. And let's say you can earn 7% on your IRA 401k. Is that a crazy interest rate? Because if your advisor's not getting you a 7% return in today's markets, you need to fire that advisor today, okay? Because money markets are paying almost 4%. So let's just put a 7% return on that account, okay? In 8 years, what happens to you? A 65-year-old person, 8 years from now, turns 73. What happens at age 73? The IRS comes knocking. Your tax deferred days are over. The IRS comes knocking on the door. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, you have a tax deferred account. We are now going to collect our revenue on your retirement account. How much time did the IRS put into you building that retirement plan? How many hours did they work putting in your retirement plan? 0, okay? And here's the game. So door number 1 in Let's Make a Deal is you do nothing. And here's the plan the IRS has for you. Your IRA that's going to grow at 7% from 65 to 73 is going to be worth $860,000. Just future value calculator, 500 grows to 860 at a 7% return. And now the IRS knocks on that door. And they say you have to start taking out a required minimum distribution, RMD. You guys know what that means? Okay, you remember the year 70 and a half? When we were working, when you guys were working and building your pot in your 401k or whatever, 70 and a half was the year the IRS came knocking on your door. Then 3 years ago, they moved it to 72. And then last year, the Secure Act 2.0, they moved it to 73. And then in 2035, it's going to 75. Now, why is that? Because the bigger pot of money that they have, the more access they have, the more revenue they're going to collect in taxes. So we said before, we're $39 trillion in debt. If I added up everybody's tax deferred account in the country, not just in this room, in the country, how much money is sitting in those tax deferred accounts that's been untaxed by the government? How much money do you think is sitting, combined tax deferred accounts in the United States?
$39 trillion.
$41 trillion is sitting in tax deferred accounts. You don't think Congress knows that? You don't think Congress knows that you people have all the money and the way to solve this debt problem is going to be, let's tax the rich people with the 401ks? You don't think that's what they're thinking? Because what's the politician's first job? Is to do what?
Pass bills.
No, it's to get reelected and stay in power.
Then they pass.
Then they pass the bills, right? So if I went out in politics and did campaigning and I said, hey, ladies and gentlemen, our country's in so much debt, we're going to now increase your income taxes on every dollar you earn at your job. We're going to increase the taxes by 30%, and that's just the way it is so we can get out of debt. Who's voting for that politician? Nobody, okay? But if I campaigned and said, hey, ladies and gentlemen, there are people, the rich, who have all this money in tax deferred accounts, we're going to go after them. I'm going to leave all the working class people, your income taxes alone. I'm going to go after the people with the 401ks and the IRAs. The rich 1%ers in this country. Because if you have 500,000 sitting in an IRA, 401k, you're rich, and they're coming after you, okay? Think that politician gets reelected or gets elected? Absolutely. You know, when I was in this business I started in 1986. If you took money out of an IRA, you didn't just pay, does anybody remember? You didn't just pay federal taxes or state taxes. You also paid an excise tax. I forgot the word tax. An excise tax. There were 3 taxes you paid. And that went away in the early 90s. Okay? Stroke of a congressional pen, rules can change. But let's say they don't change anything. Let's go back to our example. So you know you had $860,000 in your IRA. Government starts knocking on your door, and the first year you have a required minimum distribution. You have to pull out $35,000. Whether you need it or want it, you have to pull it out so you can pay income taxes on it. And next year, it's going to be $37,000. And then the next year is going to be $40,000. And then the next year is going to be $43,000. And then $46,000. And you're going to do that on and on and on and on and on until you pass away. And if you live to 90, like we used the example before, if you live to 90, you would have collected $1.1 million in distributions. And let's not even change the tax rate. 24% taxes. Right? That's today's tax rate. 24%. You're going to pay $270,000 in income taxes on those $1.1 million of distributions. Now that's sick enough to make you sick. It gets even worse. Because you didn't spend your IRA down to zero. You passed away at 90, and there's still $1 million left in that IRA. That's going to go to your kids or your grandkids. And they have to take it into an inherited IRA. And it used to be they could spread it out over their lifetime distributions. Now they have to deplete that account in 10 years. So think about that. 73 years old, you live 17 more years, you have a child that right now is probably 30 years old, and that person is now 40 in the prime working years making money, and they now inherit your $1 million IRA that has to be distributed in a 10-year period. That's $100,000 a year that they have to add to their income at whatever income levels they're at. And let's not even change the tax codes again. Let's say they're in a 30% bracket now. 30% bracket, your kids are gonna pay $310,000 in taxes on your inherited IRA. So your IRA, that at 65 years old, and you do nothing, which is door number one, the IRS is gonna collect $575,000 in income taxes on your distributions. Let me let that set in for a second. I'll answer this guy's question.
I don't know. When most people retire, don't they go to a lower category, tax category?
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad.
I don't know. I don't mind it.
Oh, what's yours? Did you go to a lower tax bracket?
Well,
That's theory.
I'm
That's
still working.
that's good. That theory worked for my grandparents who made no money when they were working, retired on Social Security, they were in a lower bracket. You guys live in Bergen County, New Jersey. I live in Essex County, New Jersey. You know how many people I see that are in a lower tax bracket in retirement? Zero. Zero. Because you guys, again, are a safe generation. I got rental properties, I got 401ks, IRAs, I got pensions, I got dividends on my portfolio, that's a couple $1 million. You guys are in the same bracket or higher. We see hundreds of people a month. Nobody is in a lower tax bracket. Maybe there's a couple, I'm sorry, it's not 100%. There's a couple of people that might be in a lower tax bracket.
How can that be if you're not working?
I just gotta say, so then you got a pension, that's $5,000 a month. You both collect Social Security, that's $7,000 a month combined. I got dividend on my portfolio, that's, a couple thousand a month. I have all kinds of, I have rental properties, we bought a 2-family house in Ridgewood. How are you in a lower tax bracket? Your taxable income is the same, if not more. I'm telling you, we see it every day. But even if that's the case, if tax rates change, you're going to pay more, and your kids are going to pay more, right? So what I'm trying to say is, if you guys do nothing and do no planning, that IRA that you had $500,000 worth, your distributions are going to cause $575,000 in taxes. If you do nothing, that's the plan the IRS has for you. And they want you to do nothing, because they get a piece of your pie. Now change the tax rates by 10%, and it's almost double the amount of taxes you're going to pay. Is everybody bothered by that? Yeah. Okay. So the tax code book is probably 25,000 pages long. You know what it's there for? It's there to teach us how to pay the least amount of taxes. So why don't we take advantage of the tax code? What if I could show you a way? Door number 2. So door number 1 is going to cost you $575. What if I could show you a way that you can get the same distributions for you, pass on the same $1 million to your kids, but cut the tax bill to $150,000? Door number 1, $575. You do nothing. Door number 2, you do some tax planning, and you can cut your tax bill to $150,000 from $575. Door number 3, using some different products. A lot of people hate the word annuity, but there are some annuity products out there that we can cut that tax bill down to $83,000 if we use some annuities. But I'm not here to sell annuities, but there are some opportunities there, and we would explain them to you. My job is to educate you and empower you so you make a better decision with your hard-earned money. So you're sitting there right now. None of us, except for this gentleman right here, is doing tax planning. You all raised your hand and you have a 401k, 403b IRA. So you learned something tonight is, I want to go sit down with John and Luke and Ted in Paramus on 61 South Paramus Road. And I'm going to just have an easy, no-stress conversation on how do I reduce the taxes on my 401k, my 403b. We feel this is such an important topic for people in this room. We built a website, dpstaxbill.com. You can go to that website, and just like I ran this future value calculator chart, you can run your numbers in that thing, change the tax rate, change the rate of return, put your age in there, and it'll click of a button and tell you how much the IRS is going to take out of your IRA 401k. That's how important we think this is. We get 20 to 30 people a weekend going on dpstaxbill.com and running their numbers. I talk about it on my radio show, which is on WOR 710. That's a New York radio station, 50,000 watt radio station. CW11, New York channel. I talk about DPS tax bill, taxes on qualified plans. So, playing the game of let's make a deal. You could do nothing, you could do tax planning, and you could do efficient tax planning, and you can cut your tax bill from $575,000 to $150,000 or $85,000. But you have to take a chance and have a meeting and learn if it's right for you. And that's what we do. And I promise you, I've been doing this a really long time. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything. You come into our office, we have a stress-free environment, we got a great building in South Paramus Road, get a cup of coffee. Hey, why'd you come to the Ridgewood Library on Tuesday night, right? If it's about tax planning, we'll run your numbers and I'll do the analysis. But you gotta take the first step and say, yeah, you know what, let's go talk to these guys. You're not gonna be sold anything. You don't have to bring one thing to the meeting. Let's have a conversation. So the tax planning, let's talk about any questions on what I just said. Does anybody not understand the numbers I said? Does anybody have any questions about it?
I do.
Yes.
For door number 2, you have to pay the taxes now. What is it, brother Broadfire, or are we going?
There's 5 different ways to do it. We'll figure out what's right for you. There's a ton of different ways to do it, okay? And we'll figure that out for you. Chris, we just lose, thank God you're here today. I got it. I don't know. There we go. Thank you. So, there's a lot of ways to do it. It's different for every person. So some people, we use life insurance. Some people feel Roth. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. We had a person, I'm going to, real quick, so Luke's going to come on. We had a person at the Seasons 52 in Paramus, a retired doctor with a $5 million IRA, who did not need it or want it. He wanted to go to his 2 daughters, and we ran his numbers, and his tax bill, it was about $25 or $30 million in income over the 17 years to 90, then the girls got it for their life, 10 years. It was about $30 million in distributions, $18 million in taxes. We cut his tax bill to $2.2 million and gave the same distributions to him and his 2 daughters. But he came to our office in Paramus, and we executed a strategy for him, and we cut the tax bill. I love taking the IRS out of your pocket. That's what I love doing, and we do it every day. So that's, any questions about that? So she had any other questions about tax planning before we move on? Let's talk about market volatility. We're gonna run a few minutes late, is that okay? You guys, is this interesting enough for you? If you want us to leave, we'll pass out at 7:30, we'll end, but if not, Luke's gonna talk a little bit about market volatility, and then one more slide left. The inflation slide, you're right. All right, hold on, we're about 10 minutes late. You guys okay with that? Okay. Now, inflation, it's another tax, right? Somebody brought up inflation before. Who thinks inflation is running at 3% here in Bergen County, New Jersey? Or Essex County, New Jersey? Does anybody think it's 3% inflation? Absolutely not. I don't. It's probably double digits, but let's say it's 6%. They're telling us it's 3, but let's say it's 6. If inflation runs at 6% inflation, your expenses are going to double every 8 years. So think about this logically with math. If you have $4,000 a month of expenses, 8 years from now, they're going to double. Meaning they're going to go to $8,000 a month. You're not buying more stuff. You're buying the same stuff. Now, if we live 25 years in retirement, how many times does 8 go into 25? 3 times. So your expenses are going to double 3 times in retirement. 4,000 becomes 8,000. 8,000 becomes 16,000. And then, God forbid, 16 becomes 32,000. You didn't listen to me, Sheriff.
Yeah, emergency bypass.
Oh, no, that's okay. But did you hear the math? 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32. If you don't have a rising income plan for your retirement, not probably gonna run out of money. It's a matter of when you're gonna run out of money. We build increasing income plans for clients. It's not hard to do. Who's gonna talk a little bit about it, and I'll finish up with some more information about it, but that's what we do every day in tax. Okay, so that's my inflation talk. Luke's gonna talk about market volatility.
Thank you, Dad. Yeah, I like to call this segment the market volatility 2-minute drill because John and Ted love leaving me about 2 minutes to talk about it. But it's just as important as the other two topics.
As you can tell, we like to have a lot of fun with this stuff. You know, it's not crazy. You can have fun with talking about this.
Yeah, investing in retirement, it's totally different than investing when you're working. When you're working and you're receiving an income, you can afford to be aggressive with your investments, and that's how you should be. But when you're getting closer to retirement and you're about 5 to 10 years out, that's when you want to start thinking about switching to a more conservative portfolio, bringing that risk down a little bit. Because once you're in retirement, you really need to worry about market volatility because you can't afford to take a loss in the market and having to take money out of your IRA with the RMD. Because once you're 73 and RMDs are due and you haven't done any of these tax-efficient tax strategies, the RMD doesn't care if the stock market's down, if it had it down here. That money still has to come out on December 31st. So I want to show you guys a few examples of what a drop in the market could do to you in retirement. So these are just, if you lose 10% in your portfolio, it's going to take you 3.6 years at a 3% return to get back to even. At a 6% return, it's going to take almost 2 years. In year 2022, both stocks and bonds were down. Have you guys at some point in your lives, maybe if you took a finance class or took a business class, heard of the 60-40 balanced portfolio? 60% stocks, 40% bonds? They work inverse of each other? Well, that portfolio was down 25% in 2022. Because the concept that they have, that stocks and bonds have this inverse relationship, is a lie. Bonds are affected by interest rates. 2022, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates and bond values went way down. So that 60-40 balanced portfolio got crushed in 2022. If you lose 20% and you're now a conservative investor, say you lost 20%, you got scared, then you moved to a conservative portfolio. It's going to take you 7.5 years at a 3% return to get back to even. With the R&D being taken out on top of that, it's going to be nearly impossible to do. Now, if you start with $100,000 in your portfolio and you lose 10%, that leaves you with $90,000. You need an 11.1% return to get back to $100,000. You may think that because you lost 10%, that a 10% return would get you back to even. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, right? Because now you're working with less principal, so you need that higher return. If you were to lose 25%, that leaves you with $75,000, and you need a 33.3% return to get back to $100,000. If you're an aggressive investor,
Who loses 25%?
people in 2022.
If you're a conservative in blue chip stocks.
In a 60-40 balanced portfolio with equities and fixed income, 2022 is real life example.
Anyway, you need a 33.3% return to get back to even. And to get that kind of return, you'd have to be aggressive. And I'm thinking as you're getting into retirement and getting closer, you want to start lowering that aggressiveness because you don't want to ride the roller coaster anymore, right, of the market. And you want to enjoy your retirement. So that's what a loss could do to you in retirement with market volatility. This chart is showing $1 million IRA from 2000 to 2009 with 4% distributions taken out and sustaining market loss. At the end of this period, this person's left with $480,000. That's just in a 10-year period. So I want to walk through an example with you guys. Let's say you have $1 million IRA on December 31st in 2022. You're 73 years old. You're recently retired, and you're in that balanced portfolio. So year one, the market went down 25%, so that brought you to $750,000. And then you got to take out an additional $40,000 because the IRS says you have to, right, with the R&D. So in year one of retirement, That $1 million IRA went down to $710,000. So what happens if you live 25 to 30 years in retirement? Because people are just living longer nowadays, not shorter, right? People are healthier nowadays. So you need to be prepared to live a long time in retirement. Next slide, please. So when we talk about risky and conservative investments, what do we mean exactly? We show this chart to everyone that comes into our office for the first time, and we're going to show it to you guys when you come in. We call it the 3 investment worlds or the 3 investment buckets, right? So on the left, you can see the safety and guarantee bucket, and these are investments like CDs, like your government bonds, like fixed annuities, where your principal, interest, and term are all guaranteed. So that's the safety and guarantee bucket on the left. In the middle, you got the hybrid bucket, where it starts with principal protection, but there is potential for more growth when it's linked to a market index. This is your investments like equity-linked CDs and fixed index annuities. Those fall in the hybrid bucket. And then on the right, you have the risk and potential growth bucket. This is where nothing's guaranteed. Your principal isn't guaranteed, your rate of return isn't guaranteed, but this is where you're gonna have the highest potential for growth. So a common thing we see is people come in, they've accumulated a ton of a bunch of assets throughout their lives, and they put the assets on the table in front of us, and then what do we see? We see a lot of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and then they think they're in a diverse portfolio. But where does that all fall under? Risk, potential growth on the right. So it's really not a diverse portfolio because all those investments can do the same thing. A truly diversified portfolio spreads the assets across all 3 of the buckets. So when you guys come into the office, we're going to put this sheet out in front of you. We're going to talk about every one of these investments, see what's comfortable for you guys, what works for you. So make sure you take us up on that offer, and I'll be here to answer a few questions about investing as you're getting closer to retirement if you have it.
So, sir, what's your definition of blue chip stocks? Is NVIDIA a blue chip stock?
What?
NVIDIA? NVIDIA is the chip maker?
Blue chip stocks, around for a while, that has increased their dividends at least 20 years.
Okay.
Every year.
You know the price of Coca-Cola?
I know, that's what I know.
Yeah, how's that price stock been since January 1st? It's down. The price is down. So that's what we're talking about. The portfolio.
They got the dividends to offset it.
That's okay. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Does that?
Blue chips always come back. If they have. Always.
Always. Okay.
Right or wrong?
No, they do. They do. But now you're taking RMDs out. You have to take the money out. You have it in your IRA. You have to take the RMD out. You're just sitting and letting it grow. But when you have to do withdrawals because the RMD, you can't buy and hold when you have an RMD worth $40,000 on $1 million portfolio. You can't buy and hold. You have to distribute. Required minimum distribution. I'm talking about IRAs. Pulling money out of an IRA in a down market. Buy and hold is easy when you don't have to take any money out.
I understand.
Okay. So the purpose of the conversation is to reduce the risk in your portfolio, but not to reduce your overall performance. Okay? Anybody heard of Morningstar? This gentleman, you know what it is?
No. I just.
I'm glad you asked. So Morningstar, who's working with a financial advisor right now? Okay, have you ever run a Morningstar report on your assets?
No.
Get out of here. You haven't done that? I'm joking. So, when you run a Morningstar report, it actually tells you a lot about your assets. If you were watching the show before you came here today, I talked a lot about what the Morningstar information you get. And what we're going to do is we're looking for inefficiencies in your portfolio. So if you come into our office, we're going to give you a free Morningstar analysis. I'm not going to charge you for it. The fact that your current advisor hasn't shown you a Morningstar report should be concerning in and of itself. Okay? I'm going to give it to you for free. I don't even know you. Okay? You can take us up on our offer. We're going to show you how to reduce taxes on your qualified plans. Take the IRS out of your pocket. Now, you can't take them out completely, but you can reduce it. We're going to analyze your assets. We're going to analyze your blue chip stocks, your bonds, your fixed income portfolio, whether you have mutual funds or individual stock positions. If we find inefficiencies, we're going to show you what they are and explain them to you. And then you're going to have, I'm going to say to you, listen, we can fix the inefficiencies, or you can do whatever you want. It's stress-free. I promise you, we're not going to force you to do anything. Let your current advisor fix it if that's what you really want to do. We don't force anybody to do anything. So you all checked off, or you all raised your hand that you had tax IRAs, 401ks, except for one person, no one's doing tax. So take us up on our offer. We'll show you how to reduce the taxes. We'll also show you how to create an increasing income stream in retirement. Because inflation is going to wipe you out if you don't plan for it. And nobody comes into our office even talking about inflation. Okay? If you don't have an increasing income plan, and how do we do that? We diversify your buckets, and we use Wall Street for what it's worth. 10 years down the road, we split your assets up into safe money investments, growth money investments, maybe dividend portfolio investments, and we're going to touch those buckets 10, 15 years down the road. We're going to let them grow and use that for income 10 years from now. So if the world's going crazy like it is right now, I'm not worried about that bucket because it is always going to come back, and I don't have to touch it for 10 years. So we bucket out your assets, and we build an increasing income stream. So for the first 5 years of retirement, you're going to have X. Years 6 through 12, you're going to have more than X. 13 through 20, you're going to have increase. It's going to increase throughout by using a diversified strategy of income buckets. And we do that every day. So, are there any questions about anything we talked about tonight that you have right now? Yes,
What's
sir.
the
I'll give you 1 second. Yes, sir.
How does DPS make money?
We charge an advisory fee. And if, as a fiduciary, we have to disclose that fee. When you come in, when we know how much assets that we possibly could be working with, we disclose our fee, but then the SEC requires it. So the more money we manage for you, the lower your fee is going to be. So if you have under $1 million, we charge a fee. If you have $1 million to $2 million, and it goes lower and lower and lower as we go on. And we'll explain that to you in the first meeting. You'll know exactly how much you're going to pay.
Yeah, we explained that in the first meeting, but typically it's a 3-step meeting process, so you guys really get to know us.
Yeah, you're not going to be charged anything for any of these consultations in the beginning. You won't be charged a dime. We do all the work, provide all the reports, do all of the analysis. It doesn't cost you anything. You can take my stuff and walk out the door and no harm, no foul. That's a great question. And I'm sorry, you got one?
Oh, just with the, like, when you take the distribution, could you use that for the life insurance policy, or that, yeah?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that. I have 2 retired teachers